Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. So I won this game about a minute or two ago, and I'm glad to say it was very accurate. One of the things I look for in my games. So let's get going here in the game review mode, and so King's Gambit, and then the move d5 is sort of outside of normal King's Gambit. So here I'm out of book. Personally, I'm out of book. I don't know. Maybe I make a book move. And I did. E takes d5 is fine. Excuse me. Picking up a pawn, and then to recapture, Black would have to put his queen on d5, a square vulnerable to two different attacks by white pieces. I decided to liquidate in the center first. I didn't want to have to calculate lines where, where this pawn was hanging and was the last piece to be captured or anything. So I played f takes e5, noting also that normal early checks against white's king along the e1 to h4 diagonal aren't available. This isn't something white needs to worry about yet. Queen takes e5, that's the best move. And then queen takes e2. With the queens in opposition like this, there's near certainty that they'll trade off. It's not 100% certain. You can always maybe move a king to d1 or something silly like that, and black develops a knight, and then maybe white scurries away to c4, whatever it is. Outside of weird sort of tangents and variations like that, the queens stand in opposition like this in front of their kings. They're probably going to trade. And that happens right away here. Black capturing on e2. Not a bad move, frankly. If you think of from the chess side of things, I'll capture back with my bishop. Does white have even the slight edge here? It's hard to say even that. It's black's turn to move, and white has developed one piece to not all that great a square. This is a darn near even board early. So that's fun. We'll be playing a queenless middle game. Queenless middle games I've found often stress the importance of understanding the c2 and c7 pawns, especially when one knight or even others seek to threaten c2 and even more c2 and c7, that is, to threaten the pawn, but also this potential fork between a king on e8 and a rook on a8. A lot of queenless middle games, this is very clear, and both sides can play for this. You also have to calculate sometimes variations where what happens if we both go in to capture the c pawn at at the same time, and it becomes sort of complicated. But that's that. And then knight to c6, knight to f3. White wants to get castle kingside and have a really fine game, but is not going to give up the opportunity to play d4 and then find some way to support perhaps d5, where there's a pawn fork against these two minor pieces. But while that's happening, black queenside castle's taking care of this c7 thing, but also the pawn on d4 is now protected. The pawn on d4 is now protected, and white says, "Hey, there's nothing in d5 in this position, so let's just get castle kingside." Oh, not right away, but it's minor pin, a relative pin. Black alleviates. When do I castle? It's all the way a few moves from now, so let me get back into the here and now of things. I played knight to e5. And I had seen the trade, then about to this far, then when I capture on e7. Yes, of course, the knight can double back. I'd seen about this far and not really noticed that the pawn on e5 here is really difficult for white to defend. I think we actually are losing that pawn in one way, depending on how black decides to capture it. So now finally, castle's king side, and yeah, we see rook to d5. This pawn is going to be gone. The computer sees some reason why rook to d5 is not the best way for black to do this, and yet I would agree with I would agree with the computer here. Knight g6 and then capturing on e5. And when I say I would agree with the computer, I'm susceptible to playing rook d5, but after seeing the computer's suggestion, we know that this works really well. Knight to g6 is going to work very well for black's plans to sort of uncramp the pieces in and around his side, they side of the board. And so anyway, the move was rook to d5. I'm conceding the idea of e5. I'm not trying to hold on to this. I don't really see a great way to do that. But playing knight to a3 in the case of rook takes e5, not right away, but at some point, this knight might harass, that's not a good word, and this knight might attack the rook at e5. It doesn't work right away. Bishop c4, bishop takes c4, knight takes c4. Trying to build some kind of spark in the position, especially while I'm down a pawn. Played rook to e1 and worked. The simple protect of the e7 knight is going to work after rook takes f5, knight takes f5. Excuse me. After rook takes f5, knight takes f5, rook takes e8 check, and white is ahead of full piece. This is mostly how to wind that down. King to d5 allows rook e5 check, and when the knight's gone, so is the other. And this is just how to win when you're ahead a full piece, or almost a full rook. I'm going to close down some of these files where the pawns are. Now I want to note, I could play rook c5 here, and with king to d6 it becomes a little contentious. What if at some point thereafter black plays g6 and my rook is stuck vertically and laterally all along this horizontally? I'm not going to draw on all the arrows, but you get the idea that the rook is going to be the rook is stuck, and it's not trapped because he's protected, but that's more headache than white wants to endure in an endgame where he is ahead a lot. G4. So it says, he says, so you're going to scare my rook, or you're not going to scare my rook. After G6, rook is scared. You pull him back to one of these sort of same ranks. One of these same ranks, 3, 2, or 1 are good ranks for that rook to find himself. Now things are mostly locked up, so white goes ahead to attack the base of the pawn chain. I think they move like king to d7. Is that my opponent played? Yeah, so, king to d7 is it's over, but If we look at king to d7, then just rook takes f6, I guess. Yeah, so that is pretty clear. And that's it, folks. Liquidating pawns and keeping important pieces away from my opponent's king and so on. That's it. And then finally here, I would go back to include as much as to the promotion on c8, so making sure that black has escape squares for his king. We don't want to stalemate him with such a strong additional force or more force on the board. Right, so we can look at some of these squares that show that black can most certainly continue to make legal moves, and we will not be making a draw out of this strong win, or clear win, I should say. Clear win. There's a strong win too, and so. Right, queen to c8 is checkmate. I'm really glad to see the accuracy, and I'm glad for the win. I think my opponent and I both played very well. We had nothing to hang our heads about, and I had a lot of fun. So, all right. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.